I stood in the lobby of Anderson Manufacturing, watching employees struggle with their ancient computer system. Every crashed screen, every frozen terminal, every frustrated groan felt like vindication. In exactly 1 hour, their entire network would switch to my software, and my parents would finally understand what their computer-obsessed daughter had built. 10 years ago, I sat at our family dinner table, trying to explain to my parents why I was leaving my secure job at their company to start my own software firm. "This is ridiculous, Sophia." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You have a guaranteed future here. Vice President of Sales by 35. What more could you want?" I looked around at the dining room where every major family decision had been made for 3 generations. The walls were lined with photos of Anderson Manufacturing's history. My grandfather founding the company in 1965, my father taking over in 1990, the ribbon-cutting ceremonies for each new factory. None of those photos showed how desperately the company needed to modernize. "Dad, the world is changing," I tried to explain. "Every manufacturing company will need custom software solutions within the next decade. If we don't adapt." "Quit wasting time with computers," he interrupted. "This company was built on real work, not playing around with technology." Mom reached across the table, patting my hand with forced sympathy. "Sweetheart, your father knows best. He's kept this company successful for 30 years. These tech startups, they come and go like fashion trends." I pulled my hand away, thinking about the software I'd been developing in secret for the past 2 years. Working late nights after my regular shift, I'd created a manufacturing management system that could revolutionize how companies like Anderson operated. "I'm not asking for your permission," I said quietly. "I'm giving you my 2 weeks' notice." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face turned that dangerous shade of red that always preceded an explosion. Mom's perfectly maintained smile cracked slightly. "If you walk away from this company," Dad's voice was low and controlled, "don't expect any support. No startup capital, no family connections, nothing." "I don't need your money," I replied, standing up. "I need you to understand that the future isn't going to wait for Anderson Manufacturing to catch up." That night, I moved out of my comfortable corporate apartment into a tiny studio above a Chinese restaurant. The next morning, Nova Systems was born. Though back then it was just me, my laptop, and an idea that would either prove my parents wrong or bankrupt me completely. The first year was brutal. I lived on ramen noodles and coffee, coding 18 hours a day to perfect my software. Every potential client asked the same questions. "How many other companies use your system? How long have you been in business? Where's your track record?" Meanwhile, Anderson Manufacturing stuck to their outdated methods. Dad proudly declared at industry events that his company believed in traditional values, not trendy technology. Mom hosted dinner parties where she carefully avoided mentioning what her daughter was doing these days. My breakthrough came unexpectedly. A small electronics manufacturer took a chance on my software after their existing system crashed, losing 3 months of production data. Within weeks, their efficiency increased by 40%. Word spread. Suddenly, Nova Systems wasn't just my dream anymore. We moved into real offices, hired developers, expanded our product line. Every success felt like a quiet rebuttal to my father's dismissal of playing around with technology. I kept tabs on Anderson Manufacturing through industry contacts. Their computer systems, ancient when I left, were now practically prehistoric. Employees complained about lost data, inefficient processes, and daily system crashes. But Dad refused to change, insisting that computers shouldn't run a manufacturing business. Then came the global supply chain crisis. Companies without modern inventory management systems found themselves unable to adapt. Anderson Manufacturing started losing clients to more technologically advanced competitors. Last month, their biggest client threatened to leave unless they modernized their systems immediately. Dad's solution? Hire an expensive consultant who recommended exactly what I'd tried to tell him 10 years ago. They needed comprehensive software modernization. The irony? Nova Systems was now the industry leader in manufacturing software solutions. Our client list included 8 of the top 10 manufacturers in the country. The consultant's first choice for Anderson's modernization was my company, though he didn't realize the connection. I kept my identity hidden during the bidding process, operating through my CEO title rather than my name. Dad's pride would have never allowed him to knowingly buy software from his computer-obsessed daughter. The contract was signed yesterday. In 1 hour, every computer in Anderson Manufacturing would display the Nova Systems logo during the system changeover. Every employee would watch their outdated terminals transform into state-of-the-art manufacturing management tools. And my parents would finally understand exactly what their daughter had built while they were dismissing her dreams as a waste of time. My phone buzzed. A text from my younger brother Michael, the only family member who had supported my decision to leave. Mom and Dad just arrived at the office. Everything ready. I smiled, watching the installation team make final preparations. Right on schedule. How's Dad's blood pressure? Through the roof. He's been ranting about being forced to surrender to technology. You sure about this? I thought about all the family dinners I'd missed, all the holiday gatherings where my success couldn't be mentioned, all the times Mom had told her friends I was finding myself, instead of admitting I was running a multi-million-dollar tech company. Yes, I replied. It's time they understood what their wasted daughter actually accomplished. The lobby was filling up now. Employees gathered around their workstations, waiting for the system changeover to begin. Through the glass walls of the executive suite, I could see my father pacing, probably making one last speech about the evils of modern technology. Mom stood beside him, nodding sympathetically while checking her phone, probably looking up Nova Systems, trying to understand why this mysterious company commanded such high prices. She wouldn't find much. I'd kept our ownership private, operating through holding companies and subsidiaries. As far as the public knew, Nova Systems was run by an anonymous tech genius who never gave interviews. My assistant approached, tablet in hand. Everything's ready, Ms. Anderson. Would you like to start the installation? I straightened my blazer. Armani, not the discount suits I'd worn when I worked here, and smiled. Let's show Anderson Manufacturing what wasting time with computers really looks like. The digital countdown on the main screen reached 0, and Anderson Manufacturing's old system shut down for the last time. In the executive suite, I watched my father grip the edge of his desk, as if he could physically hold on to the past he was so desperate to preserve. Beginning system migration, my lead engineer announced over the intercom. All terminals will restart in 3, 2, 1. Screens throughout the building flickered to life. The Nova Systems logo, my logo, appeared on every monitor, its sleek design replacing the dated Anderson Manufacturing interface. A collective gasp rippled through the office as employees witnessed their archaic workstations transform into something from the future they'd been denied. What is this? My father's voice boomed from the executive suite. This isn't what we agreed to. Get me whoever's in charge of this Nova company immediately. I smiled, straightening my suit jacket. I believe he's asking for me. My assistant raised an eyebrow. Would you like security on standby? No need, I replied. Family meetings never required security before. Why start now? I took the familiar path to my father's office, remembering all the times I'd walked this route as a junior employee. Back then I'd been invisible, just Robert Anderson's daughter, playing with computers instead of learning real business. The door was open. Dad stood behind his desk, face flushed with anger. Mom sat in her usual spot on the leather sofa, where she'd always held court during important company meetings. Neither looked up as I entered. I demand to speak with Nova's CEO, Dad announced without turning. This takeover of our systems is completely... Hello, Dad. The words hung in the air like smoke. Fully he turned. Mom's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. Sophia. Surprise, I said softly. Still think I'm wasting time with computers? Dad's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions. Shock, confusion, disbelief, and finally the beginning of understanding. You're Nova Systems? Founder and CEO. I moved to the window, looking out over the manufacturing floor where workers were already exploring their new systems. That trendy technology you dismissed? It's now worth more than Anderson Manufacturing's entire market value. Mom stood up, smoothing her designer dress with trembling hands. But, all these years, you never said anything. Would you have listened? I turned back to face them. When I tried to tell you this company needed to modernize, you told me to trust Dad's experience. When I wanted to develop new software, you said I was throwing away my future. So I built that future myself without the Anderson name or connections. This is impossible. Dad sank into his chair. Nova Systems is, they're the industry leader in manufacturing software. They have contracts with 8 of the top 10 manufacturers in the country. I finished for him. Yes, I know. I signed those contracts personally. Through the glass walls I could see employees gathering, whispering as they realized who was in the executive suite. The daughter they remembered as the quiet IT manager was back. But now their entire company depended on her software. Why didn't you tell us? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. When you became successful. Successful? I laughed softly. Mom, I've been successful for years. I tried to help Anderson Manufacturing modernize because I cared about this company's future. But you and Dad were so convinced I was just playing around that you couldn't see what I was building. Dad stood up suddenly, moving to his computer. Show me, he demanded. Show me what your system can do. I walked over, logged into the administrator account and pulled up the main dashboard. Real-time production metrics, inventory management, predictive maintenance schedules. Everything I'd dreamed of implementing a decade ago was now reality. This tracks every aspect of manufacturing operations, I explained, clicking through screens. It predicts maintenance needs before equipment fails, optimizes inventory levels automatically, and reduces production delays by 60%. 60%? Dad's voice cracked. That's not possible. Check the data yourself. I pulled up comparison charts. These are results from our other clients. Anderson Manufacturing has been operating at 40% efficiency compared to your competitors. That's why you've been losing contracts. Mom approached cautiously, peering at the screen. All those dinner parties where I told people you were finding yourself. I was building a company valued at over $300 million, I finished for her. But it was easier to let you think I was struggling than try to convince you I understood modern business better than you did. A knock at the door interrupted us. Michael entered, trying to hide his grin. Sis, the employees are requesting a demonstration of the new system. Should I tell them the CEO of Nova Systems is otherwise engaged? Dad's head snapped up. You knew about this? Someone had to believe in her, Michael shrugged. Besides, watching you realize your computer-obsessed daughter now owns the software running your entire company? Priceless. I moved toward the door. I should give that demonstration. The employees deserve to understand the tools they'll be using. Wait, Dad called out. His voice had lost its usual authority, replaced by something I'd never heard before, uncertainty. Why did you agree to take us on as a client? After everything. I paused at the door. Because despite everything I still care about this company's future. And because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what others built. It's building something better yourself. The next hour was surreal. I stood in the company auditorium, explaining Nova Systems features to the same employees who had watched me leave in disgrace 10 years ago. Their faces showed a mix of awe and embarrassment as they realized the quiet girl who'd tried to modernize their systems was now a tech industry leader. My parents sat in the back row, uncharacteristically silent. Mom had stopped checking her phone, probably realizing she'd need my software to use it efficiently anyway. Dad's face had settled into a strange expression somewhere between pride and humiliation. After the demonstration, as employees filed out whispering excitedly about their new tools, Dad approached me. The consultant, he said quietly. The one who recommended Nova Systems. Did he know? No, I smiled. He chose us because we're the best in the industry. The fact that it forced you to recognize my success was just a bonus. I was wrong, he admitted, the words seemingly painful to speak. About computers, about modernization, about you. Yes, you were. But being wrong taught me something important. I gestured to the Nova Systems logo glowing on every screen. Sometimes the people who dismiss your dreams become the proof that those dreams were worth pursuing. Over the next few weeks, Anderson Manufacturing underwent a complete transformation. Production efficiency increased dramatically. The client who had threatened to leave signed a new long-term contract. Employees who had once feared technology embraced the tools that made their jobs easier. Mom started telling her friends about her brilliant daughter in tech, though she still struggled to explain exactly what Nova Systems did. Dad hung a photo of me in the company lobby, the first woman to appear on Anderson Manufacturing's Wall of History. 3 months after the system changeover, I sat in my office at Nova headquarters, reviewing Anderson's performance metrics. They had become one of our success stories, proof that even the most traditional companies could thrive in the digital age. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom, having a dinner party tonight. Would the CEO of Nova Systems consider attending? I smiled, thinking of all the dinner parties where they'd avoided mentioning my career. Only if Dad promises not to complain about trendy technology. He's actually showing off your software to anyone who'll listen, Michael chimed in on our group chat. Pretty sure he's finally ready to admit that wasting time with computers was the best decision you ever made. That evening, I walked into my parents' house for the first time in years. The dining room walls still held the history of Anderson Manufacturing, but now included a magazine cover featuring Nova Systems' latest innovations. My parents had finally learned to celebrate a different kind of success. Dad raised his glass as I sat down. To the future of Anderson Manufacturing, he announced to their guests, and to the daughter who saw that future before any of us were ready to accept it. I lifted my own glass, but my thoughts were already on Nova's next breakthrough. Success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about being so right that they have no choice but to see it for themselves. And sometimes, the sweetest victory isn't in the moment of revelation, but in watching those who dismissed you gradually realize that you built exactly what they said was impossible. Every time my father logs into his computer now, my logo reminds him that sometimes the future arrives whether you're ready for it or not. The next morning, I received an interesting email. Another traditional manufacturing company was seeking modernization. The sender? My father's oldest friend, owner of a company even more resistant to technology than Anderson had been. I smiled, thinking about how different this pitch meeting would be. After all, nothing sells software like seeing your stubbornest competitor succeed with it. And nothing validates your dreams quite like watching them transform an entire industry, one outdated system at a time.